Long before I ever saw the man in the blue hoodie, I was just another lost teenager trying to stitch my life back together. My name is Emma Clarkson. I was 19 that summer in 1997, still wearing the grief of my parents' sudden death like a second skin. After the accident, I moved to Wellington Ridge, Ohio, to live with my Aunt Denise. It was a town nobody talked about and even fewer visited, a strip of rusting nostalgia buried in failing storefronts and long-closed diners. Aunt Denise was kind but worn down. She gave me space, maybe too much. I didn't want to sit around grieving. I needed a job, something that made the long nights shorter and the silences less suffocating. The only place hiring was the Tacobell on Old Creek Plaza. Half the strip mall was shuttered, the parking lot always half-lit, but the pay was above minimum and they offered late-night shifts. I told myself I didn't care that it was the graveyard slot. I needed to keep my mind busy, and besides, how dangerous could a fast food joint be? The place was sterile, in that way all fast food restaurants are. Mop bucket clean, beige walls and plastic booths. But something about this one felt different, and not in a good way. The ceiling tiles stained yellow from old leaks. The fluorescent lights hummed just a little too loudly. And the utility closet in the back, it smelled like iron and mildew, and the lock never fully clicked. My first night, I caught myself staring at that door like it was daring me to open it. I met Jenna on my second shift. She was 22, sharp-tongued but warm when she wanted to be. She had a way of shrugging off the weirdness of the building. Maybe that's how she survived it. I didn't say much at first. Just took my orders, kept the fryers filled, wiped the counters, and clocked out. But the third night changed things. I was wiping the soda station down after a small dinner rush. It was around 1:15 a.m. Jenna was in the back near the fryer, humming something soft. I dropped my rag and bent to pick it up. That's when I saw them. Sneakers. Scuffed white, dirt-stained, just visible beneath the swinging door to the utility closet. I stood up fast and blinked, heart racing. The door was half shut now. I stared hard. Nothing. Jenna noticed. "You all right?" she asked, tossing a pair of gloves in the trash. "Thought someone was in the back." She glanced over, gave a small shrug. "Old building creaks, probably a mop sliding." But I knew what I saw. Feet, motionless, waiting. That night I barely slept. I told myself I was tired, jittery, new job nerves, but something deep in my gut whispered otherwise. By the next night, it wasn't just feet. I arrived early, trying to shake off the restless sleep from the night before. The shift started like any other. Quiet kitchen, Jenna cracking jokes about customers who ordered 10 chalupas, register beeping on occasion. But around 1:30, I turned from the drive-through screen and saw him. He was standing near the freezer, pale blue hoodie, face obscured in shadow, his shape blurry, almost as if the air around him was warping. I blinked, stepped back. He was gone. I didn't scream. I didn't even call Jenna. I just stood there with my breath caught in my chest like a trapped animal. A chill ran down my spine, the kind that makes your skin pull tight. Jenna passed by a few minutes later. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, half laughing. "I think I did." She paused. Her smile dropped just enough to make me nervous. "He's in the hoodie, right?" I felt the blood drain from my face. She gave me a long look, then turned and walked toward the back. "Don't talk about it out loud. Makes it worse." After that, the atmosphere shifted completely. Lights flickered more often. Cold air settled near the soda fountain even on warm nights. And sometimes the headset in the drive-thru would crackle with static and faint pleading whispers. "Open it." I tried to stay quiet. I wanted to be strong. But one night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Something's wrong with this place," I told Jenna while we were restocking hot sauce packets. She didn't even look up, just said, "You ever hear of Ronnie's Eatery?" I hadn't. She told me the Tacobell used to be a 24-hour diner back in the 80s. It shut down after a botched robbery. A cook named Derek was shot trying to protect a waitress. Nobody was arrested, no closure. Just a shuttered building for years until Tacobell bought it. Some folks think he never left, she added quietly. Things got worse. The night of the storm, we lost power. Just our store, not the rest of the strip. Everything went pitch black. I used my flip phone screen to light my way, hands shaking as I tried to find Jenna. The only sound was the humming from the walk-in freezer and the soft slap of my shoes against the tile. Then the lights flickered back, and there he was, closer than ever. Standing behind the counter, hoodie soaked, blood smeared on the chest. His eyes were empty, yet somehow pleading. I couldn't breathe. He raised his hand, not to strike, but as if asking, "Help me." It wasn't a voice. It was inside my mind. I ran, out the back, into the parking lot, and didn't stop. Not until I reached Aunt Denise's driveway, heart hammering. The next day, I quit. Told the manager I didn't care about final checks or references. 3 months later, the store shut down after a ceiling collapse. But I knew the truth. I rode the bus past it a few weeks later. The windows were dark, except one. In the drive-thru, just for a second, I saw the blue hoodie. I still get chills when I hear static or soda fountains. I've tried to rationalize it, but some things defy logic. They say spirits linger where justice hasn't found them. Maybe all Derek wanted was someone to see him, to know he tried to do the right thing. And maybe that's the lesson in all of this. Sometimes the dead don't want to hurt you. They just don't want to be forgotten. There are certain places that hold on to things, moments, memories, echoes. I used to think that was just a poetic way of describing nostalgia. But that changed one April night in 2006, somewhere off a dead stretch of Kentucky highway. My name's Miles Drennan. I was 20 then, a worn-out film student from Ohio with too many student loans and not enough sleep. That spring break, I hit the road with my old roommate Jeremy Ellis. We'd been close freshman year, late-night ramen talks and dorm room movie marathons. But life pulled us in opposite directions. He transferred to Georgia Tech, I stayed behind. That trip was our way of hitting reset before real life took over. We didn't plan much, just a route, a backpack each, and Jeremy's rusted Corolla. The idea was simple: get lost and don't care. But Jeremy had turned obsessive. No real meals, no sightseeing, just constant motion. He called it maximizing the journey. I called it running from silence. By our third night on the road, somewhere past midnight along Route 15, I hit a wall. My stomach ached. My head was pounding. We pulled into a gas station for fuel, and I spotted a Tacobell sign glowing a short walk away. "Dude," I said, climbing out of the car, "I need actual food." Jeremy rolled his eyes, unscrewing the gas cap. "Be quick. I want to cross into Tennessee by 2. I didn't argue, just walked. The Taco Bell was tucked into the corner of an old outlet plaza, the kind of place with boarded-up windows and weeds growing through the sidewalk. A single flickering light lit up the cracked parking lot. I stepped inside. It was nearly empty. A teenage girl stood behind the register, visibly exhausted. A cook moved mechanically behind her. And sitting in a booth near the front window was a man, alone. His back was to me, body stiff, unmoving. He wore a faded denim jacket and sat with perfect posture. No food, just a napkin, folded precisely in front of him. Something about him gave me pause. The air felt wrong, but I was too hungry to care. "You guys open?" I asked. The girl nodded without meeting my eyes. "Yeah." I ordered a combo and sat down near the drink machine. I tried not to look at the guy, but I couldn't help it. Every few seconds, my eyes drifted to him. He hadn't moved, at all. Then slowly, he turned his head toward me. His smile was unnatural, forced, like a marionette forced into expression. "You're not supposed to be here yet," he said. My chest tightened. "What?" He said nothing else, just turned his head forward again, returning to stillness. I looked at the cashier, but she was pretending to organize sauce packets. I should have left. But my food wasn't ready, and I felt like I was locked in place. A few minutes later, the cook called my number. I grabbed the tray, trying to ignore the tension pressing down on me like humidity. But when I glanced back, the man was holding the napkin. I pulled out my phone and texted Jeremy. "Some weird guy here. We'll be back in 5. No response. The man in the booth hadn't moved. He held the napkin in both hands now, fingers curled tightly around the folded square. Then he spoke again, this time softly, almost tenderly. "This is where she died." I stopped mid-bite. "Excuse me?" I asked. He didn't answer, didn't look at me, just whispered, "She screamed right here, behind the counter, blood soaked through the apron." I looked at the cashier. Her hands were trembling as she reached for a stack of lids. "Is everything okay with that guy?" I asked, stepping away from my tray. She didn't look up. "He's here every few weeks." "What?" "He never orders, just sits there, says stuff about a girl. Haley." The name hung in the air like a cold breath. "Did something happen here?" She nodded slightly. "Manager said she worked nights. Vanished in 2001. No signs of struggle, no break-in, just gone. Only thing they found was a blood-stained napkin, right there." She gestured toward his booth. My skin prickled. I turned to look. He was gone. No footsteps, no door sound, nothing, just empty space. I rushed outside into the parking lot, scanning in every direction. Nothing but the hum of old streetlights and the croak of distant frogs. I ran back to the BP station. Jeremy was leaning against the hood of the Corolla, sipping his drink. "What took you so long?" he asked casually. "There was a guy, said something about a girl dying, then vanished." Jeremy raised an eyebrow. "Man, you need to eat something real, you're seeing things." I didn't argue, just got in the car. As we pulled out, I looked back at the Tacobell. He was there, back in the booth, same posture, same napkin, staring at me through the fogged glass. I didn't talk much the rest of that night. My mind was spinning. I replayed the moment over and over. His voice, his words, that stare. I barely heard the Springsteen playing as we crossed into Tennessee. Days passed, we moved on. Jeremy never brought it up again. But I couldn't let it go. Back home, I looked up news from Winthrop County. Found a single article from April 2001 about a girl named Haley who went missing during a night shift at a local fast food joint. No suspects, no security footage, only detail mentioned: a napkin with blood traces, case unsolved. A year later, the Tacobell burned down. The article showed a photo taken just before the teardown. In the window, blurred by smoke and glass, a pale man sat in a booth, still holding a napkin. I haven't eaten at Taco Bell since. I still remember how his voice felt more than how it sounded, like it settled inside my head and whispered in the spaces silence usually lived. Maybe he was a ghost, maybe a memory, maybe something worse. But I know what I saw. And I know some places, they remember. Some places aren't haunted by the dead. They're haunted by what the living refuse to remember. The past echoes until someone finally listens. It was supposed to be a quiet end to a long day. I'd just closed up the late shift at a struggling coffee shop off a lonely stretch of highway. The shop sat beside a mostly empty lot, one flickering street lamp humming in the far corner. That's where I first noticed him. He wasn't doing anything, just standing by a beat-up silver sedan, face hidden under a hoodie, hands deep in his jacket pockets. Something about his stillness felt wrong. Too still. Like he wasn't waiting for someone but watching. I tried to brush it off. My coworkers had already left and I was just finishing the last few receipts and locking up. The hum of the old fridge and the clicking of the coffee machine were the only sounds around me. When I looked back outside, he was closer. Not much, maybe a few feet, but definitely closer. The parking lot wasn't large, just about 20 spaces with 2 rows facing each other. My car was parked on the far end, closest to the lot's exit. I glanced at my phone. 1:13 a.m., too late for weirdos. I double-checked the locks, turned off the shop lights, and stepped outside. The cold hit fast. July or not, the nights here dipped sharply. I walked fast, keys in hand, thumb on the panic button, but I couldn't help glancing toward him again. He hadn't moved, not even a shift of weight. Just standing, watching. "Hey," I called out, instantly regretting it. No response. I turned away, walking faster toward my car. My boots crunched against gravel, each step somehow louder than the last. I opened my door quickly and got inside, locking it in one smooth motion. I looked up. He was gone. The space where he'd been was empty. The silver sedan still sat there, dull under the flickering light. I scanned the lot, heart thudding, throat dry. Nothing. Just shadows and silence. I waited for a minute or two, hoping to see movement, proof I hadn't imagined it. Then I saw it. From the corner of my eye in my side mirror, movement behind the dumpster just to the right of the coffee shop. I turned on the headlights. Nothing there. I waited, then turned the car on, hands trembling. I pulled out of the lot and onto the road, trying not to speed but desperately wanting to get away. My apartment was 15 minutes away, but every second felt longer. I checked my rearview mirror constantly. No cars behind me. When I finally reached my place, I parked right under the streetlight. I took a deep breath before getting out, still shaken, still unsure if what I saw was real, or if I was just exhausted. I went inside, locked every door, and left the hall light on. But even as I lay in bed, covers up to my chin, I couldn't stop thinking about the man in the lot, and why it felt like he was still watching me. The next morning, sunlight did little to push away the feeling. I kept checking my windows, half expecting to see him on the sidewalk. My apartment was on the second floor, so I told myself I was safe. Still, the unease clung to me. That man, his stillness, his sudden disappearance, it wasn't just creepy. It was unnatural. I tried to go about my routine. Shower, breakfast, a podcast to distract me. But every little creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind through the window felt too loud, too intentional. Around noon, I got a call from Jamie, my manager at the shop. She wanted me to cover another late shift that night. I hesitated. I almost said no, but I needed the money. "Sure," I said, pretending my voice wasn't shaking. The rest of the day crawled by. When I returned to the shop at 6 p.m., the sun was already dipping low. The silver sedan was gone. No sign of the man. I parked in a different spot this time, closer to the back door, and kept my keys in my apron. Business was slow. A few regulars came in, some truckers passing through. I tried to stay near the front where I could see out the window. Every time a car pulled into the lot, my heart jumped. By midnight, we were empty. At 12:32 a.m., I heard a noise, a scraping, inside the walls. I froze. It wasn't a rat, it didn't skitter, it dragged long, slow like nails on plaster. It came from behind the counter near the dish sink. I inched closer, phone in hand, heart slamming. The wall looked normal, but the sound didn't stop. I knocked on it. It stopped. Then something knocked back. 3 slow, heavy knocks. I backed away, nearly tripping over a stool. I dialed Jamie, but stopped. What would I say? That the wall knocked back? I ended my shift early. I cleaned fast, locked up, and didn't bother looking at the lot. I just drove. When I got home, I double-locked my door. But around 3 a.m., as I was drifting off, I heard it again. Not scraping, not knocking. A voice, from inside the wall. It said my name. I didn't sleep after that. I sat on the edge of my bed until the sun rose, every light on in the apartment, my phone clutched in both hands. I couldn't be sure I really heard it. Maybe I was dreaming. Maybe the fear had finally crawled into my head and rooted itself there. But then it happened again. That evening, just before sunset, I heard footsteps above me. Not the usual creaks and groans of a building settling, These were deliberate, slow, pacing. My ceiling fan rattled with each step. The problem? I lived on the top floor. There was no upstairs neighbor. I called my landlord, Mr. Banning, told him something was wrong with the roof, maybe a raccoon or broken pipe. He promised to check it out, but I could hear the shrug in his voice. I stayed out for hours, wandering a Walmart until they closed, then drove aimlessly until midnight. When I came back, the building was silent. I climbed the stairs slowly, flashlight in one hand, pepper spray in the other. As I neared my door, I paused. It was open. Only an inch, just barely. But I never left it that way. I pushed it open. Everything looked normal, lights still on. Couch, table, TV, all untouched. But I couldn't shake the chill crawling up my spine. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me, locking it again. Then I saw it, on the kitchen counter, a coffee cup from my shop, still warm, steam rising. I hadn't brought one home. I bought a camera the next day, just a cheap baby monitor with night vision, the kind anxious parents use. I pointed it at my front door and linked it to my phone. If someone was entering my place, I wanted proof. That night, I left everything as it was. Lights on, door locked, cup untouched. I went to bed early, headphones in, pretending it was just paranoia. At 2:41 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I sat up so fast I nearly dropped it. The screen loaded slowly, black and white night vision flickering. For a second, there was nothing. Then, movement. Someone stepped into frame, slowly. From the left, not from the door. From the hallway that led to my bedroom. He was wearing the same hoodie, same hunched posture, same silence. He turned toward the camera and smiled. I dropped the phone. When I picked it up again, the screen was black. Camera offline. I didn't leave my room. I didn't breathe. I stayed under the covers until morning. And when I finally opened the bedroom door, the camera was gone. Only the wall remained. I didn't go to work the next day. I called Jamie and faked a fever. She didn't sound surprised. Maybe she'd noticed too. Those scratches on the walls, the weird noises after hours. Maybe she just didn't want to admit it. I spent the whole morning searching my apartment. Every corner, every cabinet. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I hoped I wouldn't find it. Until I opened the hallway closet. It was the only place I hadn't checked. I moved the coats aside, pushed away the boxes. At the back, where the drywall met the floor, there was a square cutout, a crawl space. I'd never seen it before. It was just big enough for someone to squeeze through. My flashlight flickered as I aimed it into the dark. The space extended beyond the wall, a narrow tunnel running behind the kitchen. Pipes, cobwebs, dust, and something else. Footprints, not dirty, clean, bare. I followed them with the light, heart pounding. They stopped at a wall panel. There, scratched into the surface, was one word. Hello. I stumbled back, slammed the closet shut, piled boxes in front of it. It didn't feel like enough. I decided to leave. Just for a night. Go to my sister's or check into a motel. Anywhere but here. I packed a bag quickly, threw on a hoodie, and grabbed my keys. When I opened the front door, there was a package on the mat. No label, just a plain brown box. I took it inside, hands trembling. Inside was my camera, and a note, written in tiny, careful letters. You shouldn't have watched. It had been 3 years since I'd moved back to Denton Falls, Missouri, a town where time felt stuck like the dusty clock in my parents' old kitchen that never ticked right. I didn't plan on staying this long, but when the accident happened, when a drunk driver ran a red light and took both my parents in a single night, I came home to take care of my younger brother, Jonah. Back then, he was only 16. Now he was nearly 19 and just starting to find his feet. I took the first job I could get, assistant manager at a Tacobell off Aurora Lane. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Nights were quiet, the regulars polite, and the routines kept me sane. My shift usually ran from 5 p.m. until midnight, with just one other crew member, either Travis, our seasoned fry cook with a dry sense of humor, or Jess, the newer girl still learning the ropes. That November night in 2021 was cold, the kind of cold that crept into your bones and made even the fluorescent lights inside feel distant. I remember pulling up my hoodie, double-checking the back door locks, and feeling that familiar pit in my stomach. Not dread, just the kind of anxiety that clings to people who've seen too much change too quickly. But I didn't know then how much worse that night would get. The night started normal. A few families came in early. A couple teenagers stopped by to grab food before a late movie. By 10:40, the place had emptied out, the lobby floor gleaming from my mop pass, and the fryer humming low. I locked the front doors and flipped the sign. Travis was finishing the nightly boil down in the kitchen. Then I saw him. He stood just outside the far edge of the parking lot. Not close enough to be considered a customer, not far enough to ignore, just far enough to make you uneasy. Hands in pockets, head tilted like he was trying to make out a faint sound. I thought maybe he was waiting for someone. Or maybe he'd ordered an Uber and wanted to be seen clearly. People did weird things sometimes. Still, something about the way he stood, so perfectly still like he was anchored to the pavement, put me on edge. I looked again. He wasn't on a phone. He wasn't pacing or looking around. He wasn't doing anything, just watching. I went back to wiping counters and let the minutes pass. Maybe he'd leave. But at 11:10, when I came out to restock sauces near the front window, he was still there. Same spot, same posture, unchanged. I radioed Travis. "Hey, can you come up front?" He appeared with a dish towel slung over his shoulder. "Everything good?" "Look outside past the lot. That guy's been standing there for like half an hour." Travis squinted. "Weird. Think he's lost?" "No. I think he's waiting. But not for a ride." Travis shrugged, his indifference almost comforting. I tried to shake the unease, but something in me said this wasn't over, not by a long shot. By 11:25, I glanced up again. He was gone. Relief flushed through me, irrational but real, until I turned around. And there he was, standing at the drive-through window. No car, no knocking, just standing. My breath caught. I ducked below the counter and whispered, "He's at the drive-through now." Travis looked up from the fryer monitor. "You serious?" "Dead serious." He walked around the whole building. I didn't hear a step. We watched from the kitchen camera feed. He wasn't looking in, just facing the window, perfectly still, as if he belonged there. At 11:42, I grabbed the cordless and called non-emergency. "Tacobell, Aurora Lane. There's a man loitering around our building. He's making me uncomfortable." They said they'd send someone. No ETA. We waited, watched, and then he vanished. Again, just gone. 1 second he was on screen. The next, empty sidewalk. The feed never glitched, no blind spot. He just disappeared. At 12:02, I stepped out to take the trash. Travis had clocked out at 11:50. I hated the back alley, especially at night. The cold bit harder out there. Everything echoed. Every step sounded like it belonged to someone else. Halfway to the dumpster, I heard a sharp scuff behind me, like a shoe on concrete. I turned fast. Nothing. Heart racing, I dumped the trash and bolted back. Then I saw it. On the frosted kitchen window. 2 words, fogged into the glass like a breath had drawn them minutes earlier. I waited. No prints, no path in the snow. Just those words. I locked the door and sat in the office until the cop arrived. He checked the footage again. Still nothing. "Probably just some guy messing around," he said, but it didn't feel like a prank. A week passed. New shift. New girl. Jess and I were closing. At 11 she pointed at the front window. "Why is there a receipt taped to the outside?" It wasn't ours. Printed on it under special instructions were 3 words: "You were late." We stood in silence. I tore it down and shredded it. Next day, I put in a request to move to mornings. Whatever that was, I didn't want to be there if he came back. Some people wait for food, others wait for attention. But some wait for the fear to settle deep before they strike. And I had a feeling he was still waiting. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Silence doesn't always mean safety, and not all who wait do so innocently. After my breakup with Kayla, I needed something that felt predictable. We'd been together 3 years, and when it ended, it didn't end with yelling. It ended with silence. Her side of the bed stayed cold. My meals stayed untouched. I moved back in with my cousin near Tacobell, Illinois, and picked up a night job at the Tacobell off Route 83. Not glamorous, but it kept me busy, kept my hands from shaking too much at night. I liked closing shifts. I didn't have to deal with customers much, just a mop, my earbuds, and a playlist that looped lo-fi beats and 90s rock. The restaurant usually went dead by 10:30 p.m., which gave me time to clean up and zone out. March 15th was one of those nights. Cold, windy, the kind of night that made your bones feel brittle. My manager, Alicia, got called out early. Her kid had a fever, and she trusted me enough to lock up. That left me and Amber, a new trainee who still got nervous around the fryer. I told her to focus on the back line while I handled the lobby. She gave me a grateful smile and disappeared behind the prep station. It was 11:52 when I first noticed it. I had just finished sweeping near the drink station and was wiping down the tabletops when I reached the far left booth, the one next to the window facing the lot. There, right in the center of the table, was a napkin, folded into a square, precise. At first, I thought nothing of it, until I flipped it. Dark red smear underneath. Not splattered, not soaked, just smeared, like a finger had dragged something across it. I held it close. Didn't smell like hot sauce. Too dull for ketchup. I glanced out the window. The lot was empty. I knew the dining area had been closed for over 30 minutes. The last guy who came in had picked up his takeout and left in a beat-up Ford. I shook off the unease. Probably just a weird sauce spill. I tossed the napkin and moved on. But something about how perfectly placed it was stuck with me. Too intentional, like it was left for someone to find. I walked back to the front counter, giving the floor another once-over. Nothing out of place. No new customers. Amber hadn't called me for anything. I settled back into the rhythm. Mop, wipe, empty trash. Familiar patterns. Sometimes you don't notice the moment your night changes. 10 minutes later, I circled back to mop near the booths again. Same table, same spot, another napkin, folded exactly like the first. Same dark smear. I froze. I wasn't the type to scare easy. But something about that napkin made my fingers go cold. My first thought wasn't even ghost or intruder. It was, how did I miss this? How could I have been so careless? Amber? I called out toward the back. No answer. I dropped the mop and walked through the kitchen. No Amber. I checked the break room. Empty. Then the freezer. Nothing. My chest tightened. I pulled out my phone, fingers stiff. Opened my texts, ready to ask where she'd gone, just in case she'd stepped outside or taken a call. Before I could type, I saw it. In the convex mirror above the drink station, the one mounted to help us keep an eye on the dining area. There was a figure, someone sitting at the far left table. I turned around fast. The table was empty. The napkin was still there. The chair hadn't even moved. I checked the cameras from the office. Rewind. Playback. Nothing showed anyone placing it. No one had entered. The doors were locked. It didn't make sense. Then my phone buzzed. A text. Amber. I'm in the back room. Don't go near the lobby. I saw someone behind you, but he wasn't on the camera. The kind of message that makes your heart stop. I swallowed hard and stepped back, glancing toward the dining area. It looked still, untouched, but I didn't trust it. I read the message again. I saw someone behind you, behind me, but not on the camera. I felt the cold draft near my ankles before I saw the mirror again. This time the figure wasn't sitting. He was standing, long limbs, arms hanging too far down, like a man whose joints didn't quite belong. His head was cocked slightly like he was observing me, but when I turned to face him, nothing, still nothing. The napkin, though, was there. Same fold, same smear. I didn't wait. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and jogged to the back. I nearly collided with Amber as she opened the storage room door. Her face was pale, her breath shallow. "You saw him too?" she asked. I nodded. She pulled me in and locked the door. He was at the window after we locked up. I saw him staring in, but when I checked the cameras, nothing, not a glitch. We sat against the back wall, flashlight on low. I muted my phone and tried not to look at the security feed. It felt like hours. But outside there were no footsteps, no bangs on the glass, just stillness and cold. At some point, Amber dozed off against the supply shelf. I stayed awake, watching the time crawl past 2 a.m., then 3. The silence pressed against my eardrums. I thought about my breakup again, about how something can vanish from your life without warning, how silence can become the loudest thing in the room. Around 6 a.m., light crept in through the side hallway. Amber stirred. We unlocked the back room door and cautiously stepped out. The kitchen was untouched. Lobby still and dim. I didn't want to look, but I had to. The table, the far left booth, was clean. Chair tucked in. No napkin. Gone. I checked the trash. Nothing resembling it. Checked the cameras again. Still nothing. I didn't talk to Amber much that day. We both clocked out early and went home. A silent agreement. But the next time I closed, I didn't wear both earbuds. And I didn't go near that table. When your instincts scream that something's wrong, listen. Not all threats knock. Some just sit and wait. I didn't expect working nights at Tacobell in Bend, Oregon to change my life or unhinge my sense of reality. I'm Lena Ruiz, 19, working evenings to cover rent while studying criminal justice. I'm practical and skeptical, the kind of person who trusts facts, not ghost stories. But something happened on October 22, 2022, that made me question everything. It was a slow Thursday night. My coworker Janelle was on break, so I was handling both the drive-thru and register alone. The only sounds were the fryer's steady hum and the occasional car pulling up. I was bored and flicked through the security cameras. That's when I saw him. A thin figure in a black hoodie, standing in the corner of the dining area, completely still. What made my skin crawl was that the front door hadn't opened. No chime sounded. He simply appeared. I switched to the front camera. He was gone. I looked up. The lobby was empty. Brushing off the chill, I thought maybe my tired eyes played tricks on me. But then a car pulled up to the drive-thru. A woman ordered food and I turned to prepare it. On the counter lay a folded receipt dated 4 days ago. No total, just 3 ominous words. He is here. A joke, I thought. Janelle's prank. I moved toward the kitchen to ask her, but she wasn't back yet. Then I saw the man again, at the drink machine. No footsteps, no sound, just standing, unmoving. I called out, "Sir, you need to leave." No response. He lifted his head slowly. His eyes were dark, unfocused, like he was staring through me. He dropped another receipt on the counter. Same handwriting, same words, same date. I blinked, and he vanished. No door opened, no noise. Just gone. I locked myself in the office, heart pounding. When Janelle returned, she said she saw nothing. The security footage showed me talking to empty space. The man never appeared on camera, only the receipts dropping themselves on the counter. After that night, the receipts kept appearing. Every Thursday at exactly 10:37 p.m., the drink machine hissed like someone was pouring a drink, but no one was there. Sometimes I heard footsteps behind me or the scrape of a chair, but when I turned, the lobby was empty. The manager dismissed it as old plumbing or my imagination. I wasn't so sure. I researched the location's history and found something chilling. Years ago, a robbery happened here and a man named Robert Miller disappeared the same night. They never found his body. Some locals whispered the place was cursed. I tried to convince myself it was coincidence, but the feeling of being watched at night grew stronger. One night, I stayed after closing. At 10:37, the machine hissed. The lights flickered. I saw a shadow at the edge of the lobby, black hoodie, motionless. My breath caught. The figure didn't move or speak. I whispered, "Who are you?" The shadow turned slowly, eyes empty, voice hollow. I never left. My heart slammed against my ribs. I demanded, "What do you want?" A cold wind swept the room and the air thickened. I'm waiting for the truth. Before I could ask more, the lights cut out. When they flickered back on, the figure was gone, but the receipts multiplied. 3 now, 4, all dated the same night Robert disappeared, with messages that grew darker. He's waiting. Don't ignore. He knows. Fear gnawed at me, but I couldn't stop. I dug into old police reports, searching for clues. The robbery wasn't random. It was planned. Evidence was missing. Witnesses disappeared or recanted. Robert Miller was set up. The real criminals were never caught. I showed the documents to Janelle, but she warned me to stop, that I was stirring up something dangerous. I didn't listen. One night, the receipts changed again. You can't help. At 10:37 p.m., the drink machine hissed louder. I heard a voice, barely a whisper. Leave, before it's too late. That night I stayed late, determined to confront whatever haunted the place. At 10:37, the hiss came. The figure appeared, but this time his face was twisted, not in sorrow but rage. He stepped forward, shadows crawling behind him like claws. You shouldn't have come back, he growled. The lobby door slammed shut. I was trapped. The receipts burned in my hand, the messages now. He never left. The lights went out. When they came back, I was alone, but I wasn't the same. I quit my job the next day and left town. I never thought a craving for tacos could lead to one of the most terrifying nights of my life. My name is Megan, and I live in Eugene, Oregon. College life is chaotic. Between classes, part-time jobs, and social obligations, every day feels like running a marathon. Tyler, my boyfriend, is the calm to my storm. He plans ahead, thinks clearly, and keeps me grounded. That Tuesday night, however, even his calm seemed fragile. We had been at a friend's apartment studying for midterms that dragged on far longer than planned. Hours of reading, typing, and endless discussion left us both exhausted. Tyler suggested stopping for food on the way home. Tacobell's open 24 hours. You deserve a late-night chalupa, he said, teasing but serious. I laughed, trying to ignore the knot of unease forming in my stomach. The streets were slick from rain, neon signs reflecting in puddles like fractured glass. It was 11:30 p.m. on February 20th. We pulled into a strip mall parking lot, empty except for one other vehicle, a black sedan parked far in the corner. At first, I didn't pay attention, but as we got closer, I saw movement inside the car. 4 men, faces hidden under ski masks, sat motionless, heads following us in eerie unison. We debated leaving, but hunger and stubbornness won. As we parked under a flickering street lamp, the wind howled, rain running down our jackets. Tyler cracked a joke, though his voice trembled. Maybe they're just kids messing around. I tugged at his sleeve. No, something's off. Inside, the Tacobell was nearly empty. A young night shift employee, Derek, wiped down tables with distracted movements, glancing nervously at the windows. The hum of the fryers and soft music seemed muted, almost swallowed by the pounding rain outside. The tension was palpable, pressing against my chest, making it hard to breathe. Tyler leaned close. Let's just order and leave. Fast. Derek whispered, barely audible. "You two shouldn't be here. They've been circling the lot for half an hour." My heart sank. "Circling?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "They watch. They wait. Sometimes it's a robbery, sometimes something worse. Cameras, cops, it doesn't matter." I swallowed hard, gripping Tyler's arm. "We're leaving, now." The masked men had already shifted closer, lingering near the entrance. That night had already started to unravel, and nothing prepared us for what came next. As I approached the counter, I tried to calm my racing thoughts. Derek punched in our order, his fingers trembling slightly. The masked men had inched forward, standing near the glass doors now, their presence cold and silent. I could feel my heart thudding painfully in my chest. Tyler stayed close, whispering, "We'll get our food and leave, don't panic." I nodded, but the pit in my stomach only grew. I noticed a subtle shift. One man had moved toward the corner of the building, partially hidden by shadows. His posture was relaxed but predatory, like a cat stalking prey. Suddenly the lights flickered, plunging the restaurant into darkness for a split second. The fryers hissed, and the music cut off. I froze. When the lights returned, the sedan's headlights were aimed directly at the entrance, throwing long, menacing shadows across the floor. Derek's voice shook. "Back door. Go now." We moved as quietly as possible, slipping past the counter. The storm outside made the world a blur of sound and shadow. The masked men hadn't approached yet, but the air was thick with menace. Tyler held my hand, guiding me toward the narrow alley behind the building. I kept glancing over my shoulder, terrified of what I might see. Footsteps echoed from the parking lot, slow, deliberate. The scrape of metal on asphalt made me gasp. Something heavy, like a crowbar or bat, scraped against the curb. Tyler's grip tightened. "Run," he whispered. We bolted through the alley, the rain soaking us to the bone. Derek had locked the front door behind us, but I knew the men could still find another way in. My heart raced as I tried to keep up with Tyler, puddles splashing around our ankles. Every sound, every shadow, seemed amplified in the storm. We found temporary shelter behind a dumpster near the alley. My hands were shaking, teeth chattering. Tyler pulled me close. "We need to think. They might be watching." The masked men were still outside, moving slowly, deliberately. One leaned over the hood of the sedan, watching our building. Another circled to the back alley, as if testing for weaknesses. The thought of being caught terrified me. We crouched low, trying to stay hidden. Derek's warning echoed in my head. They watch, they wait, and they never give up. My mind raced with every possibility, calling the police, hiding inside the restaurant, making a run for my car, but none felt safe. Minutes dragged like hours. The storm pounded overhead, masking our breathing. Every squeak of a loose sign, every splash of a puddle, made my stomach lurch. Tyler whispered plans. When they moved back to the front, we run to the main road. Just don't look at them. The sedan's lights flicked once, then vanished from our view. My pulse slowed slightly, but the feeling of being hunted lingered like a shadow in my chest. Finally, the masked men returned to the front of the building. We seized the moment, sprinting toward Tyler's car parked a block away. Rain poured down, soaking us, making visibility poor. My lungs burned, heart pounding in my ears. Tyler fumbled with the keys, hands shaking. "Go, go, go," he muttered. I climbed in, and he slammed the door just as a dark figure appeared at the window. Tires screeched as we peeled out, the sedan nowhere in sight, leaving only wet tracks in the parking lot. We didn't stop until we reached a well-lit 24-hour gas station across town. Only then did the terror subside slightly, replaced by exhaustion. I realized we had escaped, but barely. The masked figures were still out there, circling, waiting for the next target. Back at our apartment, I couldn't sleep. Every shadow cast by the streetlights outside seemed alive, stretching and twisting in ways that felt intentional. Tyler tried to reassure me. "It's over. We're safe." But the truth was, the fear had taken root. Even in familiar spaces, I felt the chill of those masked eyes watching, calculating. The Taco Bell on West 11th Avenue remained open, neon buzzing quietly in the rain, unaware of the terror that had unfolded within its walls. Reflecting on that night, I realized a crucial truth. Vigilance matters, even in seemingly safe spaces. Trust your instincts, respect subtle warnings, and never underestimate the ordinary turning dangerous. Sometimes survival isn't about courage. It's about paying attention, moving quickly, and not underestimating the darkness that can lurk just outside the light. I never thought a simple late-night study session could turn into one of the most unsettling nights of my life. My name is Sarah Reynolds, and I'm 21, a junior at Springfield University, juggling classes, part-time work at a local bookstore, and trying to maintain some semblance of a social life, which mostly meant binge-watching shows in my tiny apartment or calling my parents on the weekends. They moved 2 states away for work last year, leaving me alone to manage bills, groceries, and everything else that adulthood demands. Some nights I felt like I was just surviving, not living. That Thursday, February 20th, was one of those nights where deadlines felt suffocating. My 15-page research paper on urban development trends wasn't going to write itself, and my apartment was a mess, a jumble of textbooks, laundry, and dishes. I needed focus, and my apartment was the last place I could find it. So I grabbed my laptop and headed to the Taco Bell on East Main Street. It was quiet late at night, and I liked the soft hum of the AC and the smell of fried food. It somehow grounded me. I settled into my favorite corner booth around 8:30 p.m., ordered a crunch wrap and a large soda, and got to work. The place was practically empty. A few regulars were scattered around, earbuds in, focused on their phones or laptops. I could see the neon glow outside flickering off the wet asphalt from an earlier drizzle. Everything felt normal, mundane, and then it wasn't. Around 10:45 p.m., a man walked in. He was in his late 30s, tall, with a graying beard and a worn leather jacket that looked like it had seen better days. At first, I didn't pay him much attention, assuming he was just another late-night customer. But then he walked straight to my table, leaned over, and slammed my laptop shut. "What the hell?" I snapped, my chair scraping against the floor. Panic surged through me. My assignment, my work, it was all compromised. "Just helping you take a break," he said, his voice calm, almost rehearsed, like he had said it 1,000 times before. My heart pounded. I scrambled back, keeping my hands between us. Nobody around seemed to notice. The staff behind the counter were busy wiping tables, the other patrons buried in their own worlds. "Don't touch me or my stuff again," I yelled. He just shrugged and moved to another booth, but the way he looked at me made my skin crawl. I felt exposed, watched, and powerless. Even with my headphones back on, I couldn't concentrate. Every time I looked up, he was there, silent, observing, a faint smile or frown crossing his face at random. 10 minutes later, I couldn't take it anymore. I packed my laptop in my bag, leaving half of my crunch wrap untouched, and stepped outside into the damp night. The parking lot was mostly empty. Only a silver sedan sat near a lamppost, and my stomach sank when I saw him leaning against it. He moved subtly as I approached my car, almost matching my pace. My instinct screamed at me to run, but I kept walking, forcing calm I didn't feel. I slid into the driver's seat, locking the doors, my hands shaking on the wheel. Through the rearview mirror, I saw him sitting in his car now, watching, waiting. Driving through the wet streets of Springfield felt surreal. The neon lights reflected off puddles, distorting everything, turning familiar streets into something sinister. I couldn't breathe right. My phone was buried in my bag on the passenger seat, my only lifeline. Could I call the police? Would they believe me? Would this escalate if I tried to confront him? My mind raced, heart hammering. The man's sedan appeared in my rearview mirror a block later. My panic intensified. I turned onto Oak Street, hoping to lose him, but he followed. Every instinct screamed at me to keep moving, to find safety. Then I spotted a 24-hour gas station 3 blocks away. Salvation, or at least a temporary reprieve. I turned sharply, nearly fishtailing on the wet asphalt, and parked quickly inside. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed. A young attendant in a hoodie looked up from his phone as I ran to the counter. "Call the police, there's a man following me," I gasped. My voice shook, my chest tight. He quickly reached for the phone and I could hear sirens in the distance. Peering through the glass, I saw the man linger in his car a moment longer before driving off slowly, like a predator biding his time. The police arrived within 10 minutes. They asked questions, took notes, promised to patrol the area. But even as I answered their questions, I felt the unease settle deep in my chest. This wasn't just a physical threat, it was a psychological one. Knowing he could come back, knowing he had been able to track me across the streets, left me feeling vulnerable in ways I hadn't anticipated. I never returned to that Taco Bell. For weeks, I changed my routes home, avoided streets I once considered normal. Sleep became fitful. Every bump of a car in the distance, every shadow moving outside my window made my pulse spike. It wasn't just the incident, it was the lingering knowledge that someone could and had invaded my personal space so easily. It took weeks before I could even think about Taco Bell without anxiety knotting my stomach. Eventually, curiosity mingled with fear. I had to know if it was just a fluke, a man with too much time, or if this place had somehow drawn him specifically. I made the mistake of walking past the Taco Bell one rainy evening in March. The neon sign flickered as usual, puddles reflecting the light in uneven patterns. I froze, my stomach dropping. The booth where I had been studying sat empty. The staff smiled politely as I passed. No man, no threat. And yet, the memories were sharp, visceral. My palms were clammy, my legs trembling slightly. I had to remind myself that not everything that frightened me existed outside my head. Part of it was trauma. Part of it was the unsettling awareness of vulnerability. I had learned a lesson about safety, intuition, and the importance of trusting one's instincts. I began carrying my phone more accessibly, letting friends know my whereabouts if I went out late. Small precautions, but they brought a sense of control back into my life. Months passed, and life slowly returned to a semblance of normal. Classes, work, friends, small victories, like finishing the research paper on time without incident, helped rebuild confidence. I still avoided that Taco Bell, but fear has a peculiar way of embedding itself in the corners of memory. On stormy nights when the wind howled and the streets were quiet, I sometimes imagined shadows moving in the periphery of my vision. My heart would race, and I'd check locks, glance out windows, and remind myself that the world isn't always as safe as we'd like to believe. I realized I had changed, not drastically but subtly. My sense of vigilance had sharpened. I was more cautious, more aware of my surroundings. I learned to trust gut instincts over assumptions. Sometimes the mind plays tricks, but sometimes it's trying to protect you. Years later, the memory of that night still lingers, a quiet shadow on the edges of recollection. I moved to another city for work, started new routines, and rebuilt a sense of normalcy. Yet, I never fully shook the awareness that danger can appear where you least expect it, even in the fluorescent, fried food-scented comfort of a Taco Bell. I think the moral is simple. Trust your instincts, respect your boundaries, and never ignore the feeling of being unsafe. It's okay to avoid situations, to take precautions, and to acknowledge fear without letting it consume you. The world isn't entirely safe, but neither is it entirely cruel. What matters is how you respond, how you survive, and how you grow stronger in the aftermath of fear. Even now, I sometimes catch myself glancing at shadows, wondering if someone is watching. But I smile, take a deep breath, and keep moving forward because life, even in its most unsettling moments, must go on.